Welcome everyone to another main event. I am Farah Belizario, your host. Today for this month's main event, we are joined by the incredible John Blouin. Hi, John. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi,
We're
everybody.
so happy. We're so happy to have you. Wonderful. So we will get started right away. John, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what led you into real estate?
Well, I was I was a Chrysler, Dodge, and Hyundai new car dealer for, 35 or 40 years of family business. And I worked 6 days a week in the car business. And then I always had an interest on the seventh day about real estate. And my wife and I would talk about it. And, during those years, if my wife would have been happy to live in a house that was for sale, I would have sold dozens of homes, but she preferred not to have the family home for sale. Um, so then after I sold the car dealership in 2006, after a few endeavors, I went into real estate in 2014.
Oh wow, that is very, very cool. So you did have like a little bit of a sales background prior to
Yeah.
jumping into real estate.
Yes. Yeah. Obviously, family business, I was certainly very well trained and schooled, and the car industry has a lot of training. Um, Probably the real estate industry has better training than the car industry. So I'm impressed with all of the tools and the availability in the real estate industry to make it easy for people to go from start to a very successful career.
Oh, that is awesome to hear. And so you said you started in 2014. Can you tell me a little bit about what the early days of real estate were for you when you started then? Like, what are some differences you're
Yeah.
seeing right off the bat?
So the early days for me starting out were not that easy. I thought it was going to be a lot easier than it was. People knew me for cars and trucks, not for real estate. So it was kind of slow going. But when I did get clients, I found that meeting with them in their own surroundings, at their own home, made them very comfortable. I mentioned that they were in charge of how things would go, and that mindset, I think, was very, very helpful to the client to know that they were in charge and that I was there to support them.
I love that. And you're kind of touching on some of what we're focusing on today with our conversation. So, what was like a turning point for you where you realized that your business was going to be about client relationships? When did it like dawn on you?
Well, I think client first approach to customer satisfaction. I feel that I try to educate my clients extensively about their house in today's market. I print out extensive copies of sold and available for sale properties, and I provide it to them also in online viewing. But I find many clients like the printed version much better. They can have a cup of coffee, they can peruse the information, and I strive to get the maximum value for my clients for their properties. Sometimes it's a campaign over time to full value. I'm not in a hurry. It only takes one buyer to purchase their house. The seller helps decide the timing. And when you take the time to really analyze the sale data along with the client, then they feel more comfortable because it certainly can be an emotional event for them in their life. On our way to analyze the seller's property, I do it on the street that it's in, the town that it's in, the price range that it's in, the county that it's in. And if it's a situation where, say, for instance, it's a house in 5 acres, if I
Yeah.
can sell the house in 2 acres and then selling the land separate, I'll list it three different ways. And that attracts a lot of additional buyers and helps maximize the yield that the client will get.
I really love specifically two things that you touched on, and it's going to be part of my next question. But I really love that you take the time to educate your buyer. I really love that you kind of think outside the box when you're helping them because your focus is helping them, not just the transaction. I think that's awesome. I also like that you talked about having something physical in hand because I agree. I think having something physical, we're kind of almost backtracking. That's having something physical in hand kind of almost feels like a luxury at this point because everything's online. So I really like that you said that. And you talked about client first. Can you really give me a definition of like your client first, your understanding or your belief of client first approach?
Well, I think that I try to provide all my clients with a detailed marketing plan that's individual about their property. It might include print, online, social media, radio, regional, and print advertising, open houses, direct mail. If I have a client and they're interested in a condominium on the Turtle Run condominiums and they want a lakefront condominium and none are for sale, I'll send a mailing to all the people who have a waterfront condo in that development to see if they want to sell and list their property. I did that to no avail, and nobody responded, and I didn't find that guy a place. But then a year later, I found him a rental in there, and he wound up buying a place in there. And I now have 2 of those condos under contract right now.
Oh, it does really work. It sounds like it's such a great idea for you to kind of tailor your approach to each person individually. Are there any specific systems or habits that you've developed to stay connected? Because I know a big part is client first, but also keeping those connections and relationships. So, are there any things that you do to stay connected to clients long after the transaction is over?
Coming from the industry that I was in, that probably has the most extensive mail-in, direct mail follow-up from when you buy a car or a truck or something, I always found the best thing possible was a satisfied client as approach to new business. And I do think that I'm very impressed that LAER has a follow-up program that you can select at the time of delivery for a nominal fee that'll keep you connected with those clients going forward into the future. I just want to go back to that early part of the time period. A lot of it is about confidence. I might ask a person, what they think it'll sell for, or what do you think it'll sell for? And, I have a pretty good idea myself, but I think, when I felt a little unsure about valuations and I felt unsure about things, I did the research. It used to be 20 years ago, you had to know what a property would sell for because it wasn't all available. But now the information's all available. And I find that many people just don't take the time to analyze the data that's there. They're in a hurry to find a quick comp to show it to them to get it on the market. And I find that I've given my customers books of information for them to look at, and they either come back with some questions or they just feel I know what I'm doing. But
Yeah.
I think doing that work allows me to feel more comfortable and confident about the price range that I'm suggested. Remember, it just has to be in the neighborhood. If it's 700 grand or 750 or 695, that person can afford any of those numbers. On a $100,000 mobile home, maybe it can't be 50 grand more, but it can be 15 more. So I think that my best approach is to do the best job for my clients by asking. If you don't ask it, you can't get it. And if they come up with an offer that's in the range that the people are willing to accept, then you can do that.
I really
But
like that, and
but
I totally agree.
getting full value for people, they know when you've done it. When you show them the stuff and you tell them what it could be, and you pick a pricing strategy, and it's successful for them, and then they tell their mother, sister, aunt, uncle, brother. I was very surprised at how quick you could develop repeat business in this business because everybody knows somebody and everybody's got an aunt, uncle, brother, sister. Um, there may be a seasonality sometimes in pricing. Sometimes we'll have a pricing that will come down as we're getting closer to winter, but we know we can go back up in the spring. Not
Yeah.
that people want to be on the market that long, but the campaign to value takes time sometimes. And the people aren't in a hurry. Sometimes the industry is in more of a hurry than the client is. And being customer focused is to recognize that fact.
I really like that. I also think that you're right. I think a lot of the time, regrettably, fear, right? Because you were talking about being confident. I think a lot of the time people feel fearful that they will lose the business if they don't act quick enough. And then they're not resourceful to find the right information to inform their clients. You're absolutely right. I totally agree with you. It's very smart.
I discussed different pricing strategies with people. I said, there's somebody on the radio that constantly advertised that they got multiple offers and they sold the house very quickly. And what I say to my clients, that's a strategy. Those people routinely price the properties below market so they can get a lot of buyers and a lot of showings. And then they say, look what a great job I've done. But I have to ask those clients if they're interested in the fast, quick sale, or if they're interested in maximum value. 20 grand is a lot of money. 10
Mhm,
grand is a lot of money to people. So I
mhm.
think that, you know, I recommend different strategies that they can pick. I don't ever anybody say, well, can you sell it for me quick and cheap, John? Or can you sell it quick? I mean, they want the money.
Yes, yes, they do. Can you sell it for me quick and cheap would be hilarious to hear. What do you think agents often, and you kind of touched on some of these things that agents overlook when they're trying to build long-term relationship? What are some things that you've seen over time that other agents might be missing when they're attempting to build these relationships?
I think that they they seem to be quick about it. You know, I don't find that when I go in for a listing appointment, I don't find that I'm competing with people. You know, I don't find there much competition. I thought there'd be a lot more competition. That's why I would go in so well prepared. And, you know, I'd have a marketing and advertising strategy, and this is what I'm going to do. When I first started out and I didn't have any business, I told people what I would do for them. You know, I'd be
Mhm.
available. I do the advertising. I do the marketing. I do the open houses. I'm experienced in negotiation. It's one thing to sell the property. It's another thing to go through inspections and come to close.
Mhm.
So, I don't know if I answered your question though.
No, you definitely did. Do you use right now? I know you said that you utilize some of the LAER systems to like kind of keep in contact and reach out. Do you use a CRM or any tools to stay top of mind with your clients?
I find myself so busy doing what I'm doing for my clients. And if there's something that my clients need or want or something that needs to be done, I do it immediately. And I feel that that's the best way that I can possibly serve the clients.
Mhm.
So I don't have a CRM, you know, I just try and do the best job for them. I should ask for more reviews. I should do more of that stuff. I do keep track of my numbers and I do work for the numbers and I use that. You know, I used to say, I'll do a great job for you. And now I can say, gee, you know, in the past 10 years, for all sales in Maine, I'm in the top 11% of all realtors on average for every year for the past 10 years. So sometimes I was in
Amazing.
the top 3%. When my mother wasn't feeling well and I was with my mother, I was in the top 18%. So
Yeah,
I think that I work for numbers. I think numbers are important. I think the clients like to know what the numbers are. That's why it's just so amazing to sit there and say I'm one of 800 agents doing $1.5 billion in sales
that's
with
amazing.
LAER.
It is. It really is. And I also like that it's not part of our conversation, but you kind of talked about a little bit of self-motivation because you having those numbers and being able to speak to them is important. And you found that value is good to communicate with your clients as well. That's awesome. So what is your approach when a client is like unsure or hesitant? I know you said you went in with a lot of information. What if that doesn't work? What if that's not tracking with them?
You mean if they feel overwhelmed or pressured?
Yes, or just unsure, or they're just kind of lost in the sauce, so to speak.
So are they lost in the sauce because their house is listed? Are they lost in the sauce because of the confusion? Are they lost in the sauce because they watch the nightly news? I mean,
You're like, in what way? So let's put it in a listing specific. You're trying to get a listing because you were talking about how much information you go in when you're going to approach somebody for a listing. What if after all of that, they're still unsure and kind of overwhelmed by all of the information that they've received?
I say it's on your time schedule. I'm ready when you are. Let me know when it's convenient for you. I'm happy to meet with you at a moment's notice. You're in charge of how it goes. I have a client who called me. It was a referral. She's handling her father's sale and their mother's sale of their home. Obviously, in the process of grieving the loss of the parent, along with bringing the house onto the market.
Mhm.
And, you know, the client is just overwhelmed. So I make an appointment, I go and see him, and then, you know, the second appointment she changes, the third appointment she changes, the fourth appointment she changes. It's okay by me. I tell her that No matter what she does, she can change her mind at any time. In other words, if she decides to list it and if she changes her mind, she's always in charge. And if she needs
Oh.
some help taking care of anything, I'm happy to help. Just let me know what I can do to be helpful to you. And I think that eventually she'll feel comfortable and come on the market. Every time I go there, the house is cleaned up a little bit more. She's getting a little closer. And I just think in the car business, and it's always about if you would buy the car today, right? Well, I always wonder why they can't buy the car the next day. And I'm sure the clients do too. So I think that just being patient and listening. I mean, one of the things that amazes me the most about this industry is I don't have to know how to change somebody's heart. I don't have to know how to, survey a property. I don't have to know how to rebuild a transmission. All I got to do is be honest, be thorough, answer their questions, show up, be available. In 11 years, I probably only had 10 people not show up for an appointment for a showing. They don't look at homes that they don't want to buy. They don't look at homes they can't afford. And of those less than 10 times, I was at the wrong house three of those times. I had two properties listed on Main Street, and I was at the wrong one on Main Street. I'm not so sure the pregnant mother that had a 2-year-old that cleaned the house for a showing that didn't happen was very happy with me. So I think that's one of my mistakes there.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. Can you share how, so we've talked about client first and prioritizing them, educating them, being thorough, just showing up. Can you share an experience of when you prioritizing your client's best interest has led to like a long-term relationship or referrals?
Yeah. So, I'm just an eager young agent or whatever, working, and I get invited to a broker tour from another broker of some waterfront lots that are for sale. And these are beautiful waterfront lots in Reedfield and Winthrop. And they're 2 to 3 acres apiece, and they're $250,000 or $300,000 a lot, which is a lot of money at the time in our area. The lots were worth it. The property was unbelievable. And probably 8 or 10 agents showed up for the lobster roll, come see the property. They offered a boat tour, and we went from 8 or 10 people to 3 people on the boat. And I went for the boat ride. And when I came back, I obviously, I think enthusiasm counts. I was very enthusiastic. I grew up on the lake. I know what it's like. I know what this is. And, right around where we are, there's 28 lakes and streams. So each one has its own particular attraction. If it's your lake, if it's a lake you grew up on, if your dad's on the lake, if you met your wife on that lake is worth 50 grand more than any other lake. So that emotional attachment is certainly there. When that agent took a job working elsewhere, his seller said, well, gee, who should I get to represent my properties? He said, I called John Blouin. He's the guy that was the most enthusiastic about it. A lot of people didn't think that the price range was proper for the properties, and they'd been for sale for 10 years and nobody had bought one. Well, it's kind of like get the ball rolling on a subdivision. And, he also had like a square footage where you had to, it's for the square footage was like from the old days, like when you'd build a 3,000 square foot house. I said, nobody's going to, move forward on a 3,000 square foot house. Let's keep the price the same. Let's advertise, let's market it. Let's do all those things that you do. And during the pandemic, during the month of June, no, it was July, they came up and bought 8 or 9 of the waterfront lots. I did $2 million worth of sales, plus I sold his cottages all at the same time. He's referred me countless to 2 other places. And I think that's, listening to the customer. I agreed with him on their pricing. I find that the customers will adjust the pricing if it's needed to be done, or they'll accept an offer. You just have to be in the right range. You have to stand firm with them in their conviction if their conviction is correct.
Mm.
We
Oh,
could
that's
spend an
awesome.
hour discussing that one particular client and all the homes that I sold for him. He had somebody else had his place in Brunswick for sale. And it was it was a subject of a divorce. So when you went into the house, it kind of the whole thing was like a little sad. So I
Hmm.
did in that instance, because he asked, I did have somebody else who'd been in the industry for decades more than me. And she said, do these 5 things. And he
Hmm.
had the money to do those 5 things and wound up selling it. Um, we brought it back on the market for more money than it was offered before. And somebody who had looked at it before with the other agent, even though it had drawn down in the price, bought it at the higher price later.
Are you kidding?
No, that's a true story.
Oh my God. I've also never seen somebody successfully. I mean, obviously, if the property is completely redone, but to bring it back to market at a higher price
Well, I mean, we
point.
did a few things. It was a $700,000 house, and the shingles over the front porch, needed to be done for $700. They needed to remove some of the animals from the hot tub that were there, right? And clean out some of the stuff and and make it look a little bit different. But I had a client last month, or this month I'm closing on the land. I had a property that was originally on the market with 4.4 acres, $750,000 asking price. They didn't sell it, and then they called me in this particular case, they called me and 2 other people, so I was competing. um, well, they knew me from afar and knew me, we, socially a little bit, but asked me for a proposal. And they asked 2 other people for a proposal. I said, well, you're out, you got 4.4 acres, $750,000 in value. I think I could sell the house in 2 acres for 725 or 750, and we'll sell the land separate for 150,000. So we sold the house for 720. We closed this week on the land for 130. So I got him somewhere around $100,000 more than the other person was trying to get. When you do that, because of advertised merchandising, open houses, Matterport tour, all those things, homes.com, land.com, I'm invested in all of those resources for my
Hmm.
clients to give them the best exposure.
And it also speaks to you thinking outside the box, right? Because I don't know a lot of agents. I'm sure more tenured agents would think about splitting things up and offering them in different ways, but it really is thinking outside the box. And it also goes back to speaking about confidence, to have the confidence to approach and say, hey, this is not the only way to roast a pig. We can do this a couple of other ways.
I did it the previous month too.
You did.
I've done it 10 or 15 times. And, if it's got public water and sewer and the people can develop it, and you price it 3 ways. So you price it with the house and 4.4 acres, and you price it with the land separate for 2.0 and the house separate. So you've got 3 listings. So you've got people calling you on 3 different listings. So you get more traffic, you get more ups, you get more opportunity.
More eyes on it too. My other question is, when you go in for the listing, did you do like 3 separate CMAs
I
for all
did.
of your
I
scenarios?
did. I did.
It's pretty
I
genius.
spent 5 hours doing the research. I spent 2 hours writing the proposal. I probably should put it on a template, make it easier.
You really should. This sounds like
Well, I'm
this
working on
sounds.
that. Well, I mean, I'm working on that a little bit, right? But technology is really exciting, and there's a lot that can be done with it. I said to my wife the other day, I said, I'm going to need to do more stuff on Zoom, because I'll be able to reach out to more of my clients in a more effective manner more often. But I'm kind of the guy that, went to your house and you were happy, and I did really well at your kitchen table. So I think that, you stick with what you know. And I think the best piece of advice I got was from Kit Foster. And he said, have them help you determine the pricing, give them the information, pull them in on the conversation. Let them know. At the same time you're educating them, you're reducing their fear or their uncertainty,
Mhm.
and they feel more confident about what's going on.
Oh my
If
goodness.
someone's antsy about what's going on with my property, what's going on, I'll run the numbers for them of what's sold in the past 90 days to show
Hmm.
them that we're not missing out, or we can recommend different pricing strategies. The newest thing that I came across, which was kind of by accident a little bit, I got a phone call and they said, hey, we're going to do a broker tour. We want to invite people that have $1 million homes on the waterfront for sale, because, I want to see what you think of mine and I want to show me yours.
Yeah.
So we did the broker tour. And while we're on the broker tour, I says, well, what are you offering for compensation for the buyer agency? And they
Mhm.
all said nothing.
Was this before? Oh, it had to be after
Yeah.
August
And I'm sitting
17th.
there go,
Yeah.
well, I'm offering 2% because I think real estate is sold in a traditional manner as it always has been. So I
Yeah.
try to get my clients to, put 2% in that they're willing to offer. Well, on $1 million, if I don't offer the 2%, I can drop the price $20,000 and not change any position for my client. So that's now a pricing reduction strategy that doesn't cost any money, but it's a little bit
Hmm.
different. But I was surprised to find on those properties that everybody was saying, well, just, the people can make up their own mind or they can have their own money.
Yeah. It kind of sometimes and it end up being cutting off your nose to spite your face a little bit. Also, I really liked that because it's something I've never thought of. Because again, I think a lot of agents might go into a listing strategy out of fear of losing the business, of having to compete, and so they're not being as resourceful as possible. But bringing the client in on making the decision for pricing by producing the data and the research and just kind of having that's genius, because I think most people think they have to go in and tell the person
And I
what the
guess
number
that, and I
is.
guess that's my point. I guess that's my point because if um if you want to move to this town because your mom's there and your mom's not doing well and you want to buy a home close by
Right.
mom, but not everybody live in the same place, that
Right.
home's worth a lot more to you than it is to somebody that's mother doesn't live down the road.
Right.
So, I mean, I think, as far as you have to be in the right neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
When someone calls me, I'm available too. I think that's really a key to be available. Um, so I'm flexible in that regard. Um, and I really enjoy what I do. I'm passionate about it and I love to do it. And you know, I like to make money.
I like that. So do I. Totally agree.
And I like to help my clients. When I get somebody $100,000 more than somebody else was going to get them, and they'll say, "Well, but you get more of that money." I go, "Yeah, I get 6 grand, and you get 94 grand." You go,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, who would? I mean, actually, I think you could actually work with a sliding scale. This new way of doing business, where we got to negotiate and everybody's got to do it, and it's all front. The successful people are just getting more. They're
Yes.
getting more. If I got to explain it all to you, I'm
Yeah.
worth considerably more than somebody who just started out.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, we are closing in on the end of the time. Let me ask you some last end of this kind of closing questions. What's one piece of advice you would give to agents looking to grow referral-based business?
I offer them that individual marketing program that I told you, homes.com, land.com, Zillow Showcase, Matterport Tours, detailed floor plans with picture icons. A lot of people don't understand how the house fits in with them. If you get one of my Matterport tours and you go to the floor plan, it has a picture icon. When you look at the kitchen, it shows you the picture of the kitchen. It shows you the picture of the hall. It shows you the downstairs. If I have a waterfront property that also has a 30 by 60 barn, I've got a link that goes from the house to the barn, and there's a Matterport tour of the barn too. So I think that you can you can buy with confidence from a distance my properties. People will drive across country and come and take delivery of the house. They'll spend
Yeah.
more time on a Matterport tour falling in love with the house than they ever do when they get to the house. The
Yeah.
average house viewing might be 38 to 42 minutes, right? If you're looking at 10 houses or 6 houses or whatever, you
Yeah.
might go back to that one, but they fall in love on the Matterport tour and they become even more committed to it.
I love that. Really just offering resources. And then
Also,
lastly,
also, I've got a mobile home. They're doing the Matterport tour on the mobile home tomorrow, and they did a
really?
Matterport tour on a restaurant with a floor plan. So, if people can see it, right? I called my the newspaper's got a special deal where you can get a color photo in the Portland paper
Yeah.
for hardly any money at all. It's less than $100, right? So I called them up and I said, well, what I want to do is I want to have an open house and I want to put multiple properties. And what I want to do is say, click on the Matterport tour and you can take that tour right here. And
Right.
I was trying to see if they'd give me the open house ad and be able to say Matterport tour. So they're
Nice.
working on that. But
That is genius.
that's a nice way to, well, and I said, well, you're trying to do everything digitally. You're trying to
Yeah.
create more and more impressions. You're trying to produce less newspapers and do more stuff. I said, you should
Right.
consider my thing. Here's a copy of, you know, my properties in Haven Magazine. Here's
Oh,
the LAER
wow.
ad in Homes and Land.
Love.
The Homes and Land feeds out to northern New Hampshire, southern Maine, and then it feeds out to all kinds of luxury websites. All of the listings do. Here's a specific thing for one of my waterfront properties with the Matterport tour with the garage in
Yeah.
somewhere in the Belgrade. So, I have all of the lakes databased in Maine, and so I've got a listing coming up on Echo Lake. There's 147 people on Echo Lake. So as soon as I get that listing, I can send a postcard to that 147 people about that house on their lake.
I love it. It sounds awesome. You can also do QR codes that link to your Matterports. Do you ever do that too?
Yes, yeah, we've done that. We've done that. And Linda, my technology person who helped me today and every day, right?
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, John. This was such a great conversation. You are awesome. I really appreciate you taking your time with us today. Thank you for sharing.
And anybody who wants to call and talk to me, then they're welcome to call me, 207-446-7708. And the other thing is I answer my phone. When my sister went to Europe and went around the world on a tour, she told her son she was going to give him my number for emergency. He goes, well, I'm your son. I should be the emergency contact. She said, Uncle John answers his phone. If I'm in Thailand and I'm having a problem, I want somebody answering the phone.
That's good. It also says a lot about you. I mean, I could get better at answering my phone, but that's awesome that you do. And it's a good tip for realtors as well. Thanks so much, John. Talk to you
Hey, thank
soon.
you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.